gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard the Financial Independence Podcast.
G'day, and welcome to another episode of Captain Fi, the Financial Independence Podcast, where I open the cockpit to some of the best and brightest in personal finance, as well as those who have reached or are on their way to financial independence. Before we get started, remember, nothing said here is financial advice, and you should always do your own independent research before making any financial choices. With that being said, I hope you enjoy the episode and learn something new. This podcast is brought to you by the best portfolio tracking tool for Aussie investors. ShareSite makes it incredibly simple to track your portfolio with automatic updates of share purchases and dividends, easy-to-read graphs, and comprehensive tax and performance reporting, all wrapped up in an easy-to-use cloud-based system. For users with fewer than 10 holdings, it is completely free, and I even used the free version for years. Head over to captainfi.com/ShareSite-review to see if ShareSite is for you. Captain Fi listeners can score themselves 4 months of ShareSite Premium for free by using the bonus sign-up code in the article. If you do ever decide to hold more than 10 stocks, be sure to use this code to get your first 4 months for free. Even if you do only plan to use the free version, using the code means if you ever do upgrade, you'll still get your 4 months for free. Ditch the Excel spreadsheet and complete your tax with a click of a button by signing up today. That's captainfi.com/ShareSite-review for your 4 free months. G'day everyone, and today we've got a very interesting episode. Whilst a lot of people might roll their eyes when they start to think about submitting their tax returns, it's something that everyone has to do. So personally, I used to submit my own tax returns, and actually when I was at uni, there was a guy in my dorm who would go and submit it on our behalf, which I don't think was exactly legal. When you're 18 and stupid, you do what you do. I then learnt about, I think it was called My Tax or something, and I was submitting my own personal tax returns for a while using the free Australian government tool. But I realised that I was actually cutting myself short because there were lots of work-related deductions that I was missing out on. I actually went and saw a specialist aviation tax accountant who was able to really increase my deductions and get me a lot healthier returns. So I think it's definitely something you should consider talking to a tax professional rather than stumbling your way through it. So today on the pod, I've got Minh, who's joining us all the way from tropical Darwin. He's going to talk a little bit about his experience of becoming a tax accountant and some of the things that you should consider when it comes to tax. So, Minh, g'day, mate. How you going?
Good morning. How are you, Captain?
Yeah, I'm awesome, dude. Thanks for asking. What's it like up in Darwin? I'm assuming it's like 100% humidity, hot as always.
Yeah, it's hot, man. Lately, it hasn't been too bad. We've got a bit of rain, which cools the place down.
Yeah, it used to kill me, mate. So I spent a lot of my time in Sydney, and I thought Sydney was humid because I'm like a southerner. So I'm used to Adelaide, Melbourne, just dry or cold. At least when it's hot here, it's dry here. I was complaining just living in Sydney, but I spent a lot of time in Darwin for work. So I'm very familiar with Mitchell Street and some of the establishments up there. All right, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So you say you're originally from Melbourne, you've moved up to Darwin, and so do you have your own business there, or are you working as part of a firm?
I'm working part of a firm at the moment, so I've been there for about 5 years now. So providing advice to the local people, helping small businesses, individuals.
Awesome. And so how did you become an accountant? Is it something you always wanted to do through school or just stumbled your way into it? Or
Good question. It's a funny story. I never imagined myself working as a tax accountant. Growing up as a teenager, I loved playing games, working out and playing sports. So during my final years of high school, I really wanted to study IT or something to do with sports. My high school counsellor advised, look, add more options to your list for when you finish your ATAR or finish your studies. So I added accounting. Another one was real estate agent as my backup. But unfortunately, my ATAR wasn't high enough for IT or sports. But I got accepted to study accounting. So I thought, why not give it a try? And yeah, I haven't looked back since.
So what was the process of becoming an accountant? How long was the study and what was involved?
Generally, it's a bachelor's degree. So it's 3 years studying at uni. throughout those years, there's the main course of accounting, like financial management, and then there's this electives. So that's where you got to pay attention to what elective you want to choose. So initially I thought I wanted to learn about tax, wanted to help businesses, small businesses, individuals, how to do tax returns. So during my electives, I thought, all right, I need to study tax. And then my second option was to study audit. So from there, the tax side, they teach you about tax law. And from there, I enjoyed it. I loved it. Loved learning about taxes, how businesses grow, how people make money.
It's quite interesting. So there's a fair bit of overlap then between, say, like an accountant, someone working in business management, and like a financial advisor then.
There is, people think, oh, he's an accountant, he must know how to do tax, but it's like similar to a specialized industry. So there's management accountants, they look after businesses, solely businesses themselves, like they might work in there and they might do the managing day-to-day stuff, invoices, expenses, payroll. But whereas myself as a tax accountant, I assist multiple businesses. We look at how the government implements laws or how to plan for the future or plan to grow businesses. So that's where we provide advice.
Okay, interesting. So when you were doing your bachelor's and you were looking at your electives, is it a Bachelor of Accounting or is it like a Bachelor of Finance?
It's a Bachelor of Business.
Bachelor of Business. Okay. So in the introduction, I mentioned that I had tried to submit my own tax returns myself. I saw the light and saw an accountant.
Yeah.
Now, I seemed like a specialist aviation accountant and it was not cheap. Obviously, you get what you pay for, and when my tax returns were quite complex, it was worth it. But once I'd finished my training and my finances were pretty simple, I actually just switched to a bog standard advisor. Like, what do you think about people submitting their tax return? Is it okay to file it yourself, or should you really be going and seeing an accountant?
Anyone can lodge their own tax returns. Either they lodge in MyGov or paper. Whether it's wrong or right, it's up to the ATO to decide. Some people, you don't know what you don't know. They put the wrong deductions or they put the wrong claim or they're missing something. Can I use examples? Let's say a mechanic.
Yeah, of course.
Let's say your car breaks down or something's wrong with the car. My opinion is you wouldn't try to do it yourself. You need an oil change. You'll go to a mechanic to change the oil. Similar scenario with tax accountants. You don't know what you don't know, so that's why you go to us. We do this every day. It's our bread and butter. So there may be things that you are missing and that we can pick up and it's in your benefit. Either it's extra deductions, more income somewhere that you've missed from shares, rental property. But in my opinion, whether it's simple individual tax return, just come and see us, talk to your local accountant, give them a call. We're always happy to have a chat and ask them what you need to bring in and have a meeting with them.
Okay, so what's the sort of cost involved to get an accountant to prepare your tax return?
It depends how complex your tax return is or what you have as investments or a lot of incomes, a lot of deductions, receipts. So the fees can range from $70 to $400.
Okay, wow. So $70, like when you think about it, that's not really a huge amount of money for potentially what could get you a much higher return. And historically, I'm thinking like 10 years ago, I paid $1,500 one year for my tax return. And that was a lot of money for me at the time. So it's good to know it's actually not as expensive as I'd previously been paying. Talking about your average person, like what are some of the common deductions people might be able to claim on their tax?
Back to the fees, that $1,500, we normally charge on a time basis. Some people charge fixed fees. As I mentioned, the complexity of it, it could be that you had a lot of deductions, you had different investments. So we have to try and collate all that information, create our work papers. Our work papers are used in case ATO come back and say, hey, provide me this receipt. How come you're missing this? Or how come you're claiming this? And that's where we act on your behalf. So it's in a way planning for that scenario. That's why the fees might be a bit different. Whereas, $70 is just a simple tax return.
Yeah, so it all comes down to the amount of time spent.
Yeah.
Makes sense, mate.
Common deductions would be stationery. That includes pens, diaries, notebooks, any donations you make to charity. But the donation needs to be more than $2 and it needs to be a registered charity. So I can't just go and donate $2 to my mate who says, I'm running this charity, give me $100 or something. It's more, say, Red Cross, Vinnies, professional memberships to specific job industries. So for example, I'm an accountant. CPA would be my professional body. So if I'm a member with them, I pay them a membership fee each year, so I'm able to claim that back. There's also clothing. So the issue with clothing is it has to be specific to your industry. With clothing, they're quite particular. Example would be if I'm a tradie, I could claim protective clothing that includes high vis, steel cap boots, sunglasses. There's also occupation specific uniform. So if I'm a chef, I could claim chef pants, the hat that they use, let's say scrubs as a nurse. And interesting one is the lawyers. You know how they have that wig?
Oh, yes, the big wigs.
So they could claim that. Other one would be compulsory uniform. So let's say McDonald's has got the logo. You can tell that that person works in that specific company. So Woolworths, and then there's also government departments.
Okay, that makes sense. So you can't just go ahead and say, I'm going to claim these Levi jeans because I did some paperwork whilst wearing them. That doesn't really cut the mustard, does it, man?
Yeah, ATO are quite tough with this because people are buying, let's say, a Gucci bag and Gucci shoes, and they're saying, all right, this is specific for my work industry, I need this, but the ATO is saying that it's not specific. If you had steel cap boots and they're from Gucci, yeah, maybe they'll let you off. But we'll wait until Gucci starts to design those boots.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that'll be happening anytime soon. Do you have a side hustle? My side hustle is websites, a form of digital real estate. If you want to learn more about this lucrative side hustle, check out my review of the E-Business Institute and their online self-paced courses. They cover everything from total beginners right through to advanced web design and how to buy, renovate, and sell websites for profit. As a graduate of Matt and Liz's courses, I can't thank them enough for the valuable web skills they gave me, and now I enjoy growing my portfolio of websites for income. Captain Fi listeners can register for free access to some of these courses by signing up using the link at www.captainfi.com/ebusiness-institute-review. Build your portfolio of digital real estate and start using websites to make money today. Look, with COVID-19 and the big shift to working from home, are there any sort of deductions people can look at claiming from working from home?
There definitely has been a shift in the amounts and types of deductions due to employees having to work from home. Normally you would work in your employer's office and the running costs would be paid by the employer. So the running costs being electricity, internet, computer. Having to work from home, you the employee will be consuming more electricity, more internet data, phone calls. So yeah, to claim the working from home expense, you can choose one of three categories. It's either shortcut method, which was introduced during the COVID-19 period, and my opinion is the easiest method. Claim the shortcut method during the below dates. So it'll be the 1st of March 2020 to the 30th of June 2020, and then from the 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of June 2022. You can claim 80 cents per hour. That covers any furniture or office furniture you've purchased, your electricity costs, your internet. You have to have a dedicated work area. So that means a room that's being used to yourself only. So you can't be working in your lounge room and claiming all these expenses. You need to keep a diary or Excel record of the number of hours you spent working. So the good thing about this is there's no requirement to keep receipts or tax invoice, but I would still suggest you keep one, just in case the ATO come and ask, all right, you've spent this number of hours, can you prove that you worked on these days?
Yeah, you got to be able to substantiate any of your claims.
Yeah, that's right. The second one would be the fixed rate method. So with the fixed rate method, it covers office equipment, office furniture, electricity, also includes cleaning. You can claim 52 cents per hour. Same scenario as the first one. You need a dedicated work area, keep a diary, Excel record of the numbers of hours you spent working, receipts and tax invoices of the expense. You need to keep those. So there's electricity, internet, mobile plan, and any stationery. Third one would be the actual cost method. You claim the actual cost you paid, but you apportion the private and work-related part. So you still need the dedicated work area. That's a separate room to yourself, diary, Excel records, and the number of hours you spent working.
Okay, the shortcut seems to be the simple one, but in all cases, you really do need to basically have good records and keep records about what you're doing, things like receipts for purchases, bills, and that kind of stuff. But what could you claim if you didn't have receipts? Can you even claim stuff without receipts?
Best option is if you don't have it, don't claim it. it's just too dangerous what you're trying to do.
Yeah, of course, because there's some pretty serious penalties as well for making false declarations. Like, what kind of things can happen if you make misleading or false statements in your tax return?
Worst case scenario, you go to jail. Best case, which is the common one, is the ATO will review it and they'll disallow the deduction.
Wow, okay, so that's a pretty big spectrum. So on one hand, I guess it sounds like a slap on the wrist. On the other hand, it's, hey, you're going to the big house.
Yeah, that's right. The ATO would normally disallow the deduction. They'll amend your tax return, and if you did receive a refund, you'll have to pay some of it back. If you had a payable, then yeah, there would just be an extra bit of tax to it. But the serious side of it, if you've actually committed it and it's a large deduction, so the ATO would then say, hey, look, you've now committed tax fraud or refund fraud, and that's more of the serious side. That's what they consider a criminal offence.
So I can understand if people make genuine mistakes, like they accidentally do things or maybe they don't know. But if you are aware of the laws and you deliberately commit tax fraud, I don't think they're going to be very sympathetic towards you.
No way, man.
And it's funny because I mentioned that I had that really high bill before. I was actually super glad that I went to this specialist aviation accountant because I did get audited by the ATO and they were just like, oh, there's no way, man. And it was because I had a lot of work-related self-education expenses. And the irony, of course, was after they audited me, the accountant, the fee included insurance for this kind of thing. They did the audit and it actually worked out they had to give me more money. So my deductions were actually higher after the audit, which was cool. So when you submit your tax, there's always questions about work-related self-education expenses. And I've personally claimed them in the past with respect to aviation just because it is quite an expensive industry. But for people that aren't very familiar with it, what is a work-related self-education expense and when or how might people be able to claim courses they've been doing?
So a lot of individuals get caught out and audited by the ATO for incorrectly claiming self-education expenses. Not many people realize that they have to first reduce the education expense by $250, and then you can only claim self-education expense if it's a formal qualification. So what I mean by formal qualification is, let's say I'm studying a bachelor's degree or certificate or diploma, and there's also extra conditions that you need to meet. So those extra conditions is there must be a connection with your current employment. So let's use an example. Because I'm an accountant, that's the best example. So let's say you're studying an MBA and you're in a managerial position. So that's where you can say, all right, based on my position and what I'm studying, this will help improve my skills and knowledge, and it would likely result in an increase in my income. Again, those three conditions are, there must be a connection with my current employment, it must be to maintain or improve my skill and knowledge, likely to result in an increase to my income. So the expenses that you can claim would be your tuition fees. That's if you paid it yourself. So if it was subsidized, either by, I think they call it HEX now, or HELP, then no, you're not able to claim the expense. But you could claim textbooks, stationery, your internet, portion of your laptop, tablet, mobile, and public transport from home to school.
Okay, so it's definitely not just as simple as, hey, I went to uni, it cost me this much, I can claim it all. That probably just highlights the need that it's worth going and spending some money talking to an accountant. Look, now this next question is probably a bit of a hard one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are some ways that people can be a bit more efficient when it comes to their tax? So, for example, structuring their business or their finances or investments. Is there a way as an accountant that you know that people can pay less tax, or is it some ways people can start looking into that to reduce their tax bills?
Number one would be go see your accountant. Everyone's got different plans, they've got different ideas, and the complexity comes with asking the right questions. So we'll have a meeting together, we'll ask you, what's your business involved in? Where do you see yourself in 5-10 years' time? Will there be a transition from yourself to your spouse, your kids, your grandkids even? And that's where we can say, based on this information and what your requirements are, we can provide you better advice. So people get caught out with, how do I reduce my tax? Oh, I don't want to pay too much taxes, but they don't realize that paying tax is what helps our economy grow in a way. School fees, taxes are used to pay for school, They paid for our roads, infrastructure. There's more things to it. That's where paying the right amount of tax is ideal.
We have legal requirements and you're not trying to shirk your responsibilities as a citizen. And look, having lived all over the world, I am super grateful to be an Australian citizen and live here. And I'm more than happy to pay my fair share of tax. And the good news is if you're paying tax, that means you're making money. So
right.
What's the issue? But the big takeaway from me, mate, is that everyone's situations are unique and different. So there's really no one size fits all category. So it does make sense to pop down, see your local accountant, and actually start having these hard discussions.
Yeah, that's right. The other thing is people generally jump into it. All right, I'm going to buy an investment property in my name, or I'm going to buy in a trust or something like that. But then when they decide to sell it, they don't realize, hey, why am I paying so much taxes now? Whereas if they bought it in a different structure and sold it, then they realize, all right, this is another way we can reduce the tax, where they can do proper tax planning.
Yeah, so it's worthwhile speaking to an accountant and a financial advisor before any big financial life-changing decision. If you're ready to level up your investing, then studies show that automation and removing human error is going to be the key to your long-term success. That's why I switched to automated investing through Pearler using the Pearler Auto Invest feature. Pearler provides some of Australia's lowest brokerage costs, and many ETFs are even brokerage free through them, which keeps more money in your pocket. Pearler are chair sponsored through the ASX, which means your investments are securely held against your individual HIN, and there is no doubt as to the safety and security of your investments. Pearler have a host of tools and features to help you reach financial independence quicker, and you can even follow me and see all of my investments through your Pearler login. You can read all about Pearler from my comprehensive review at www.captainfi.com/Pearler-review, and for an exclusive invite code and free trade, use sign-up code CaptainFi. Awesome, man. I just want to change gears a little bit now and ask you a couple more personal questions, if that's all right.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, okay. So I love delving into this. We'll get a bit nosy on the podcast and ask about people's financial dirty laundry. So, Min, what's your money journey been like? You went to uni and you're a finance professional. What has that meant in terms of like your savings and investment and your relationship with money?
Yeah, it's been wild. My parents came from Vietnam. They escaped during the war, so pretty much with nothing. And they hustled, they worked hard, they planned, and they organized themselves to have assets for themselves so then they can slowly transition to retirement. Inadvertently, they taught me not to be materialistic. Others that are less fortunate than us, what we have, we should appreciate. From there, I've worked since I was 14, 15, and I've worked since. So the value of money, you got to understand that. It's something that helps you develop yourself in a way where you learn how to save, you learn how to spend. I was fortunate that my parents helped me with my investment journey. They helped me put down a deposit for a property in Melbourne. So from then, I've been hooked onto investing and trying to look at how to build that asset growth and how to transition myself to slow down, not retire, but slow down and have that flexibility of doing what I would want to do.
So I'm from Adelaide and there's a huge migrant community here, and actually it's pretty amazing to consider, like particularly some Vietnamese refugees that came to Adelaide with nothing, and a lot of the Vietnamese community began farming and buying land and property, and it's been an incredible financial plan and choice because many of them now are super wealthy due to like just sheer growth in property. A lot of those farms, market gardens are being broken up and sold for residential property. So it's pretty amazing to show the power of what hard work and sacrifice and those compounding gains do over time. And I can't actually remember his name, but I'm pretty sure at one point our Lord Mayor of Adelaide came to Adelaide as a refugee with nothing and built his career, moved into politics, and then, became a fairly successful politician. So it's awesome. And it brought a lot of really cool stuff to Adelaide. I love Vietnamese cuisine as well. So you mentioned you started in property, but you're also interested in building other assets. So I'm assuming that's kind of like shares or managed funds and that kind of stuff. Would you be able to share a little bit about how you manage your money, your budget, and what kind of things you are investing in?
So I'm investing in shares, direct stocks, either in Australian stocks or US stocks. And the second one would just be property. So those two are my main ones. I have a high risk profile. So I tend to buy and sell, and I'm quickly in and out. And that's where I say different people have different risk profiles and they have different ideas. Some people would be, all right, I'm going to buy a specific share, I'm going to hold it for X number of years, and that's how comfortable they are. They've done their research, I believe, and they're comfortable with what they want to do. Whereas for me, I'm comfortable with buying and selling. I do hold some stocks for long term, but I'm just more active in the market.
Interesting. I think we might have some opposing views there. I don't know if you've read too many of my posts, but I am not very good at share trading. I have lost money share trading before, so I tend to just do the boring index stuff. But again, as you said, it all depends on individuals' risk tolerance and what they want to do. But interesting. So has that been profitable for you? Have you been able to beat the index, or is it just you do it because you enjoy it?
Hit and miss. Some of the stocks I haven't done so well. That's where you got to learn, all right, you've got to cut your loss at a certain amount. You can't just drag your feet and say, all right, it'll come back. One day it'll come back. That's where you got to understand, all right, I've made that loss, cut it, and then look at something else.
That's giving me anxiety just talking about this. I guess when you do that trading and buying individual shares, man, it opens up like a whole new world of knowledge and experience that you need to do that successfully. And yeah, those are skills and experience that I don't personally have.
And that's where a lot of people listen to your podcast and follow you. They're not willing to take that risk, or they're not willing to put in that extra work. So they say, all right, I'm going to go on the Cap's blog. I'm going to look at what he's doing, because, success leaves clues. What you've done so far to date has worked, and people gravitate to that. So it's slow and steady. People may think it'll take 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, but they don't realize there's a compounding of it. If they put that extra money in, then they'll see it grow.
That's a really interesting point about the whole, you said success leaves clues, or people want to achieve what you've achieved. I've never professed to be an expert, and I'm just going along because I figure it out myself. And I have to be careful because I don't want to influence anyone's financial investments. All right, especially there's been some stuff in the news recently about finfluencers and that sort of not being kosher. So I do just want to reiterate that, look, the stuff that I've posted and talk about has just been my personal experience. And just as we said with the tax side of the house, you probably should go and see a tax accountant and not make it up yourself. It's probably worthwhile, most people going in and talking to a financial advisor before they start making serious investments, because not everyone's situation is the same. It's just a shame that there are some issues with access and affordability to financial advisors. But yeah, it is seeming like a bit of a murky place to be in at the moment.
Yeah, just with things that are going on in the economy, it's just a lot of things are changing. It's not like how it was 10 years ago, where people can listen to someone, they can go into a meeting or seminar and you could buy this, you could buy that. There's good and bad things to it, because there were a lot of property spookers back then. So that's where now regulation has changed that. With the changes in regulation, it's good and bad. Sometimes it's there to protect you, but sometimes it can be too restrictive. Now with the ASIC influencer stuff, not many people would do their own research, to be honest. They'll look at something, but they won't delve just that extra bit into it and can put themselves or their financial ideas and look at it.
Interesting. Oh, speaking of influencers and financial influence, what have been some of the biggest influences in your money journey? So you mentioned your parents were a huge part of that. But have you read any awesome books, or have you had any other mentors or experiences that have shaped your financial journey?
Like most of the listeners or guests on the podcast, I would say reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad got me into investing. Richest Man in Babylon, that was an awesome book. It just opens your eyes and mind to see how to build wealth and how to get into investing. It's just reading those books, understanding how they got there, understanding the psychology of it. The other one would be my mortgage broker. So whenever I have any ideas, whether it be investing in property, shares, businesses or anything, that's who I can talk to. So I'll go to him. He's got the experience as well. So it's the community around you. So it's pretty much books, my mortgage broker that's given me these ideas, as well as your podcast. I listen to it. You have very good guests on them, and they have their ideas as well. So it's just listening and understanding.
Yeah, it's the networking stuff's really important, isn't it? I've heard the saying, your network is your net worth, and having all these people around you that you can ask and building a trusted team, I think is crucial in building wealth. So, Min, it's been awesome. We've had a great chat. I'm just going to finish up by asking the final question that I ask everyone. Totally not personal financial advice, but generally, mate, what advice would you give someone on the path to financial independence?
My advice would be, we get so bogged down in achieving financial independence. So trying to find ways or means to make a quick gain. It's a slow and daunting process, but being aware and starting small will get you to your goal of being financial independent. As we mentioned before, success leaves clues. So follow and study the people who have what you want. Talk to them, ask them, and you will notice it's their daily habits or attitude towards money that has gotten them there.
I'm super glad you came on, mate, and being able to share your lessons and your experience in your industry for the broader people, because I imagine there's probably quite a lot of people that haven't actually seen an accountant, because a lot of people do just submit their own tax returns. So my big takeaway is there's actually a lot of benefit to going and seeing an accountant, because they can dot the I's and cross the T's. Not only are they going to get you more in your tax return, but they're going to make sure it's bloody compliant. And so you reduce all of that risk, like you said, about getting audited, or potentially if you're stuffing up your return and inadvertently making false claims on your tax. So it just seems like a cheap insurance.
That's right. Just avoid that jail time.
Yeah, no, that's free accommodation and food. That could be jail fire, could be away.
Start from there. So that'll help you save your money. Another thing was with accounting fees or tax accountants fees, it's also tax deductible. So you go see them, they charge you their fee to prepare your tax return. You can then claim that as a deduction in the next year when you do your tax return. That's another incentive. Push yourself, go see them. They can claim a bit more, plus their fees are tax deductible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. So just finishing up, Min, if there's anyone out there that's interested in tax law or is thinking about becoming an accountant, maybe they have started their study or maybe they haven't yet, is there any advice, like career advice, you would give to these people?
It's a rewarding yet challenging career. You learn a lot dealing with different type of people whilst having to keep up with the constant changes to the tax legislation and deadlines. Every year there's a federal budget that comes out. I'm doing that now. I'm trying to read through it, understand it, so then I can advise my clients. But with students or anyone that's studying, what I would suggest them they do is take that extra step and study online with another course. So with your bachelor's degree, it's so broad that it covers a lot of accounting knowledge and information, whereas tax accounting, it's more like a specific industry. Go online, have a look at what people provide as training. That's my advice. So once you go into work, you can hit the ground running. Part of the tax law, how to prepare a tax return even.
So it's about just making sure that you have that specialist knowledge in tax law. Man, it sounds complex. It sounds a lot more complicated than I thought it was. And so it sounds like a pretty challenging sort of career with lifelong professional development. Is it what you expected when you first got into it?
No, it wasn't what I expected. I thought, like everyone, assuming everyone thinks, is you go in, give the information to your accountant, and then they crunch the numbers, count the beans in the back room, and then here's your tax return. No, it's more like building that relationship. It could be first you're dealing with mum and dad, and then later on you're dealing with the children, and then you're dealing with the family group. So it's a bit more involved, helping generation grow their wealth.
Hey, Min, thanks so much for your time today, mate. It's been a blast having you on. Really appreciate your time and your effort answering all the questions today. I hope everyone got a lot out of it, but my big takeaway is go and make friends with an accountant.
Yeah, that's right. Some of them even give free advice, but just be careful what they say. Recommendation is always the best.
Word of mouth, can't beat it. All right, you have a lovely, sunny, tropical, humid Darwin afternoon, and don't get up to too much mischief, mate.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Captain Fi Financial Independence Podcast. To read the transcripts or check out the show notes, head over to www.captainfi.com for all the details. If you have a question for the captain, make sure to get in touch. You might even make it on the airwaves. You can reach me online through the Captain Fi contact form or get in touch through the socials. I'm active on Facebook and Instagram, as well as a number of online finance and investing forums. And finally, remember, the information presented on the show and the links provided are for general information purposes only. They should not be taken as constituting professional financial advice. You should always do your own research when making any financial decisions and make sure it's appropriate for your personal circumstance.